Hey guys, it's towniesimbuilds here, and welcome back to a very special bite-sized speed build. Now today's speed build is going to be a little bit different given that this is sort of a shell challenge, but of course it is also a collaboration with a fellow simmer by the name of CrackedKyber. So I don't know if you guys have seen their content, but if you haven't, please check them out. They do really incredible builds, especially if you like builds themed around fantasy and witchcraft. Their builds are absolutely perfect for this. I would say that if you are heavy into gameplay, I would say their builds are perfect for worlds like 𝗪𝗪𝗏𝗀𝗏, 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 very special shell swap. We both went in game, we designed, I guess, a very simple shell, no roofs. I don't believe there were any foundations, no landscaping, but we tried to make very unique shells for each other to use. Now, there was also a caveat that was very interesting. So when I reached out to CrackedKyber, they were really cool about the collaboration. They were very excited, and they did see that I did quite a bit of limited pack builds. So they thought, hey, this could be really cool. We could choose about 4 packs, and CrackedKyber chose 2, and then I also chose 2. So this build that we're watching right now is actually composed of Get Together, Seasons, the Realm of Magic pack, and then the Jungle Adventure pack. So those are the 4 packs we are using, and she will also use those same packs as well in a very unique creation of her own. For this build, I definitely wanted this build to be very magically oriented, and that definitely fits along the theme of a lot of CrackedKyber's builds as well. But of course, we did have Realm of Magic, we did have Jungle Adventure, and I really wanted to put a unique spin on a possible fairy house. So today we're building a fairy Hacienda inspired house, so it's more of a Spanish or Mediterranean style influence. And I actually had the idea from one of my real lore videos. So if you guys love those, if you guys have seen some of the episodes, I did do an episode on the Zaragoza Goblin of Spain, which was possibly a duende, which was pretty interesting. I did learn a lot about the folklore behind them, and I also learned about a particular type known as anjanas, which I'm not really sure if I'm saying correctly, but in terms of Western folklore, they're very similar to nymphs. They're kind of like nature beings that dwell in the woods or around ponds, and they offer certain types of blessings as well. So I thought that could be a little bit of the lore, a little bit of the cultural connection, if you will, between fairies and, of course, a more Spanish-style build. And you know, we still don't have fairies. It's been a long time. We have vampires, we have witches, we have werewolves, but we're still waiting on those fairies from The Sims 3. So yeah, hopefully they do come at some point. But yeah, this build hopefully is kind of a mixture of both styles. I wanted to blend more of a fantastical style with one that was more of a Spanish or mission style build, if you will, very akin to the Hacienda style. And right now I am currently working on the kitchen area. You did see all of the front come to life. I will circle back and do a lot more of the landscaping because of course this is a fairy house, so I did want tons of flowers, and we will eventually get a garden as well. For this kitchen in particular, it is probably smaller than I would have liked, but I thought it was fairly cozy. I did like using those base game archways as well, so you do get a nice kind of open air experience, but you don't have any invasive Sims kind of stepping through those arches, so I thought that fit pretty nicely there. And then also using those pieces from Jungle Adventure as well, which I technically do not know the name for. I do want to say they're kind of like stone lattice style windows. I'm not really sure if that makes sense, but I did want some kind of connection between the kitchen and the dining room itself. Now you will see I also use a ton of objects from the Get Together pack, and I honestly just loved filling this house with kind of ivy, with, I guess, flowers crawling up the wall, if you will. Just trying to give the house a little bit more of a fantasy aspect, so hopefully that makes more of a connection to fairies, where plants are just magically growing everywhere. There's not really a need for soil or pots, it just kind of creeps and crawls along the wall, and the ceiling as well. Furnishing the kitchen was fun. I definitely used a lot of objects that I don't normally use. I very rarely use seasons, so I thought the table was great. I love the base game chairs as well. But moving on, we are going into the living room, and this living room probably saw about 3 variations. I really wasn't sure what to do with it. Again, I think the really hard part was blending that mission Spanish style house with that fairy aspect. And I think for most of the ground level floors, the Hacienda style is definitely more prominent. It doesn't feel as magical, but I still use a lot more of the foliage from Get Together. I do pull these very sort of fantastical, mystical torches from the Realm of Magic pack, and I just create this little cozy living room. I did also try using more of the Pueblo style oven, but it just really didn't fit here. So I did go base game, and I will also close this off with an archway as well, just to give the room a little bit more depth. Originally, this was also going to be on a slight platform, but I do like this kind of trio of archways that I use instead. Just finishing off the space with a little bit of clutter, just using some base game books. And of course, we do have a lot of awesome plant objects from the Jungle Adventure pack. I honestly love this pack for the plants. They definitely fit if you are doing something more Spanish inspired or more Tuscan, Mediterranean. Honestly, those objects just cover a lot of different bases and cultures and regions of the world. So I think it's a very versatile pack for building. I'm fleshing out a partial bathroom now. This is on the first floor. And normally for larger builds like this, I do like a partial bathroom on the first floor. That way you have Sims that are staying on the first floor, especially if you have guests. You don't really want them scurrying up to the second or third floor, especially if they're using ensuite bathrooms from your Sims. Just not cool, but you know, Sims do it all the time, so I thought that was probably a better solution for that. And moving back, there's not really too much here. I just do a little simple mudroom towards the backyard. And I also enclose this statue from the Jungle Adventure pack as well. So I guess for the lore of this house, this could be the matriarch of the fairies here. That was kind of the lore in my head. But moving on, we do have the second floor next. And this is primarily the bedroom space for the fairies in this house. Unfortunately, there's not really a lot in terms of bedrooms here, but we will have 2 fairly balanced sized bedrooms and then a larger bathroom as well. I do bring up more of the stone lattice pieces. I again wanted this to feel very fairy-like, so I imagine fairies being more open to nature, not feeling so closed in, if that makes sense. So if there was a way for kind of natural air to come through, for natural light to come in as well and support possibly these magically growing plants inside, that was kind of the concept in my head. Anyways, we're moving on now. We are diving into the main bathroom. It is the only bathroom besides the partial one on the first floor. But honestly, I loved using a lot of these objects. I did use this beautiful tiled wallpaper from the Jungle Adventure pack, which was also used in the kitchen and I think the living room. I kind of missed it. I was talking and I totally missed what I did in the dining room area. But yes, it does make a comeback here. And I do a little inset moment with the shower and also the toilet. We do, of course, have a double vanity, and I am using the, I guess, linen cabinet object from the Seasons pack. Now, I do want to note that I will come back and fix some of the rooms. I do come back and make changes to the bathroom and kitchen, just because I wanted to give them a little bit more of a magic touch. But we will circle back a little bit later on in this video. Anyways, we are on to the bedroom spaces now. And I do get to use these wonderful beds from Seasons, which I very rarely use. They are some of my favorite objects, but unfortunately Seasons is just not a pack I use a lot in builds, just because the style is a little bit more suburban and not as thematic, but I do really love these objects nonetheless. Currently, I'm just finishing off the room with a few more bits of foliage, again from the Get Together pack. I mainly go for the blue flower bits, but I will also change them for the white flowers as well. But now we are moving on to the second bedroom. And I would say, honestly, this is my favorite between the two. It's definitely a lot more pastel and floral. And I would say it's more stereotypically in line with what you'd envision for a fairy. But I do think it works pretty well here. I also add in a little bit of a closet or alcove moment, very similar to how I did the fireplace. Unfortunately, I don't know if this works in game, so I will have to playtest this, but I thought it was a really cool moment nonetheless. Just a little bit more clutter, but we will move on into the third floor. And the third floor, you guys, this is definitely where a lot of the magic happens. Unfortunately, I am not very well versed in fairy lore. I do know that fairies do have magical capabilities. I do know that they can cast kind of like mischievous spells or pranks, but in terms of what they do magically in comparison to a witch, for example, yeah, unfortunately not my area of expertise. But of course, we are using the Realm of Magic pack, and I thought the fairies could be adept at potion making, so I did include a cauldron in the tower there that you guys saw, and of course, hanging a lot of herbs from the pack as well. Now, apart from that, there is a little bit of a study and or library here. So again, using a lot of the objects from the Realm of Magic pack. I mainly go for a very cream color palette here, and honestly, this little study area was my favorite. Using the crystal light, I used the scale from the Realm of Magic pack. And you know what? Here I go, you guys. My favorite base game painting here. These mysterious glyphs or symbols that I use in almost every build. They're just very versatile, so I do bring them everywhere. Again, bringing up that foliage once more, I do go for the white flowers this time. I did use a lot of the blue flowers towards the lower level, I believe, but I did want to mix it up a little bit. There is a small reading nook that I'm finishing up here, again using a lot of Realm of Magic objects. And going back to the cauldron itself, I did kind of want to make this almost like an alchemy station. So I'm pulling a lot of the base game crystals. There are these very mysterious jars, which I do believe contain various animal parts. So a little bit suspicious. I would say that I would hope perhaps there is pixie dust in there instead. But I'm going to let you guys use your imagination. If there are animal parts in there, perhaps it's more fitting for a witch. But yeah, there it is. We're just finishing off the tower now with the stairs, or rather ladder there. And of course, moving on back down, I do make a few adjustments to the remaining rooms. So one of them was the kitchen. I do put a little bit more clutter in here, and I do swap out the fridge for the Realm of Magic option. Now, I do give the bathrooms the same treatment. I do select the Realm of Magic toilet instead, and I do also add in a little bit more foliage in the bathroom as well. The mirrors also get changed out. I tried doing Realm of Magic, but I wasn't really feeling the option it had, so I do use some very ornate base game ones instead. Going to the outside now, a lot more details being added. I definitely wanted the house to feel more magical. So what better way for a fairy house than to have lots of flowers, lots of dangling vines and ivy. So it's kind of a combination of jungle adventure with the get together pack, mainly with all of the foliage around the building. Now, I do also create these really interesting sort of stone pillars. I do use the, I guess, magical moat object from the Realm of Magic pack. If you guys are looking for them, they are found in debug, but unfortunately they're not animated for some reason. I thought it would be so cool if they actually glowed and emanated in a certain way, but they are static, but I still think they have a really cool effect, and I think it does hint to more of the fairy aspect of the house itself. Now, like I said, I did also want to include a garden, and I do situate it right outside the dining room area. I do use a lot of these base game planter boxes, and I try to give the garden a little bit more privacy from the front, so I'm pulling in more base game bushes. I'm using more of the sort of tropical plants from the Jungle Adventure pack, and I will eventually also repurpose the archway I used in the front as well. Putting the lanterns on this, a little tricky. It's kind of a guess and check kind of game. You guys saw that lantern being very finicky. It was kind of wanting to latch itself to the wall next to it. But I do eventually get it in place. I do use more of the spiky vine objects from the Jungle Adventure pack, which I very rarely use. I think the last time I used this object was actually in the Encanto house. So I was really enjoying using it once more. Another object I don't get to use a lot of is actually the floral arranging station that originally came with the Seasons pack. So I thought it was fairly fitting here, putting it in the garden itself. And again, exploring more of the awesome debug from Realm of Magic. These really interesting pink toadstools, which again really fit the world, so I do place them around the lot. And finishing off the main yard area, I also create an outdoor dining space. So if you feel a little cooped up in the dining room area, this could be a better space for your fairy or magical sims. And just for some lighting, bring in those torches as well. Now this balcony area, you guys, kind of struck me as a little bit of inspiration at the last moment. I did want to continue some of the magical elements, And because this is attached to the study or library in the house, I thought this could be a very interesting summoning rune. Now, I know that fairies are usually very in tandem with nature, so perhaps this could be where they channel their powers. Again, I'm going to let you guys use your imagination there, but more or less, this wraps up the complete Fairy Hacienda build. Alright guys, and that is a wrap on the Fairy Hacienda house in the world of 𝗲𝗏𝗯𝗏. Now again, a very special shout out and thank you to CrackedKyber, who joined me in this very fun shell swap collaboration. I really enjoy using her shell, and I have not seen what she has made just yet, but if you guys have not seen her channel, please give her a follow, please check out her content. She does really great builds. On that note, this is still a no CC, no mod limited pack build, and will be available on the Sims 4 gallery. I'll leave you guys now with the final lot specs, as well as the final cinematic shots, so you can see how everything turned out in the end. And of course, just like always, this has been 𝗬𝗏𝗋𝗀𝗡𝗍𝗶𝗆𝗍𝗔, signing off. Thank you so much for watching, guys.